This is from Reuters. Pentagon, stumped by extremism in the ranks, orders stand down in next 60 days. They say the U.S. military on Wednesday acknowledged it was unsure about how to address white nationalism and other extremism in its ranks, and announced plans for military-wide stand-downs, pausing regular activity at some point in the next 60 days to tackle the issue. The decision to hold a stand-down was made by Lloyd Austin, who made history by becoming the military's first black defense secretary after a long career rising in the ranks of the Army. In his confirmation hearing, Austin underscored the need to rid of the military of racists and extremists. Pentagon spokesman John Kirby said Austin ordered the stand down after a meeting with the U.S. military branch leaders who are under pressure to show progress in combating extremism after current and former military service members were found to have participated in the siege of the U.S. Capitol on January 6. The Pentagon has yet to define how it will deal with extremism or offer data estimating how many service members hold white nationalist ideology. It has also not disclosed how many troops have been disciplined for extremism. Quote, "We don't know how we're going to be able to get after this in a meaningful, productive, tangible way. And that is why we had this meeting today. And that is why he certainly ordered this stand down," Kirby told reporters. It was unclear whether the announcement was meant to foreshadow any near-term concrete actions by Joe Biden's Pentagon, or whether the stand down was more of a symbolic move meant to demonstrate Austin's acknowledgement of the problem and continued resolve. The first thing I'll say on this segment: if they really know that there's white nationalism in the military, they got to get rid of it. They got to do everything they can to find these people, and these people, in my opinion, should not be serving. Look, there's a line between being an adherent to an extremist ideology and having opinions that won't impact your job. I think people are allowed to have those opinions, so I'm specifically referring to those who are expressing a desire for some kind of ideological outcome and seemingly a willingness to be more loyal to that ideology than this country. However, I don't trust these people. That's what worries me. We already saw in D.C. some dude had a Gadsden flag post on Facebook, so they kicked him out of D.C. They kicked him off the mission. One dude was like posting about the NRA, so that was gone. And we know how the left and establishment Democrats define racism and white nationalism. They say Trump is a white nationalist. They say all of Trump supporters are racists. It's not true. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris literally fundraised for the rioters that in the George Floyd riots, and that resulted in 19 deaths. They literally defend extremists. Then they tell you the other people who oppose it are the extremists. We can see how they're treating what happened on January 6th. Certainly a bad moment, but now they're trying to look at AOC. She came out with this huge fabricated story. She claimed, that she thought she was going to die when this cop knocked on her door. Now it turns out not only was she not in the Capitol building, but her story took place at 1 p.m., a full hour and 10 minutes before anyone breached the Capitol building in the first place. The time she told her story, people had only gotten past the first barricade. So they're lying. They are the extremists. And what really worries me is, like I said, if they want to get rid of real ideological extremists, I'm cool with that. But if what they're really doing is loyalty testing and purging the military of anybody who might support the idea of American independence and liberty, we got ourselves a very, very serious problem because it extends well beyond the military. But what we're seeing in D.C., for instance, permanent barricades, barbed wire. They're saying it's going to be permanent, a green zone in D.C., 5,000 troops. It's an occupation. And now they're getting rid of those disloyal. It sounds like we are headed towards some truly horrific nightmare. We're living in it, man. This is a dystopian novel.
Yep, and this is also happening on the backdrop of the FBI expanding their activities, finally being mobilized and activated like we've never seen before, on top of elements in the mainstream media, specifically NPR, calling for CIA counterinsurgency operations and tactics inside of the United States. Now, when you look at the history of the CIA counterintelligence insurgency operations, what are they going to do? Are they going to start arming terrorists and bombing weddings in the United States?
Antifa.
I mean, are you kidding me? And again, we have to understand here, this is happening at a time where, a lot is going on. So there's a lot of room for concern.
It's rapid.
Yeah.
It's rapid, man.
Looks like all the opening moves, if you just, suffered a coup d'etat, this is exactly out of the handbook. It's like, get loyalty tests, purge the military, start investigating your own people. It's not what a free society does. This is what a very unfree, unhealthy society does. And, everything they were accusing Trump of doing, I mean, it's happening right before our very eyes. It's self-projecting. They're gaslighting to mask it. It's pretty scary.
Really so you were mentioning you knew people in the National Guard who were talking about this.
Yeah, I mean, I got messages today about it before I think it was really started to trend. It became a topic, and I read it. I was like, this is insane. I mean, they're going to use this as a carte blanche to get rid of essentially anyone who is just slightly to the right of maybe Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Anyone who doesn't adhere to everything in the establishment's orthodoxy is done, and they make up. I mean, the NRA members, a member of a TPUSA organization. I mean, you could be part of very mainstream conservative organizations, and they will use that as a way to label you as a white supremacist.
Look what they did to the RNC, right? So we had this digital RNC. It wasn't a big crowd. You had a couple black politicians and speakers, and the Democrats and the leftists said they were tokenizing them. And I'm like, yo, you complain that the Republicans are too white, and then when they bring up people of color, you complain that they're using people of color. It's like there's literally nothing you can do.
You can't win.
Yeah, it's just they've set it up in such a way that they are always right. They've covered all of the bases. It is very obviously an extremist authoritarian ideology. Some of these progressive YouTubers were defending Antifa burning down small businesses, and then defended 25,000 fully armed, with the authority to kill, National Guardsmen in Washington, D.C. So how do you defend the destruction of the working class, the businesses, and then the power of the state, unless you are an authoritarian wingnut?
It's all about power. They don't care. And then every time Republicans do this all the time, they always try to bring up the hypocrisy and the double standards. They don't care. They're shameless. They just say the biggest lie over and over again until it becomes truth. And we've seen a lot of people buy into it, the sheeple, whatever you want to call them. And, they're just regurgitating what they're told because it becomes, in an Orwellian sense, the only truth.
These Stalin kind of loyalty tests are going to be interesting because I know a few people in the military, and after being in the military, a lot of them are disenfranchised with the military, with the government, whether it's the government lying to them to get to them in. There was a recent video my friend was showing me. It was on TikTok, and it was a random National Guards member going up to troops being like, hey, why'd you enlist? Why'd you sign up? And all of them, I can't even say what they said, family-friendly show here, but the gist was, I'm stupid. I don't know what I'm doing. I just wanted to check. Yep. And a lot of them don't even get to check because they get lied to by the recruiters to get in there. And that's not even talking about the larger issues of the history of Agent Orange, depleted uranium, and the U.S. government using its troops literally like pawns for psychological chemical weapons testing and all these other kind of weird experiments that no one even wants to talk about. So there's a big segment of the U.S. military that is disenfranchised, and the more that they're in the system, the more anti-government they become. So these loyalty tests are going to be very interesting, especially with something like a Joe Biden presidency, when we're seeing the representation and the response to him, especially online. Now, of course, this isn't a perfect representation, but if you look at the White House YouTube channel, the like to dislike ratio is crazy.
They haven't shut that down yet?
Well, so here, this is an important comment because, the first reaction from many leftists is just because right-wingers brigade, send all of their followers to dislike something doesn't prove its general sentiment. And my response to that, so basically it's like this. Why is it that the White House videos are all thumbs down? Well, what they say is, 4chan or Reddit or Patreon.win or whatever will tell everyone, hey, go here and give it a thumbs down. Or they'll post the video and then everyone will go and give it a thumbs down. If that's the case, if that's what they believe, what they're saying is the left has no organizational power to, online. But I think what the reality is, those who seek out information, who are, who learn through critical thought, are more likely to oppose the orthodoxy. Left and right doesn't mean anything. Right now, what they're saying is, when they say Tim Pool is right wing, I actually find it kind of hilarious that I can have so many left wing policy opinions and agree, very much more often with someone on the left on economic or social issues, and then they call that right wing. Why? The difference is critical thinking and challenging the establishment. What left and right is becoming is pro-establishment versus anti-establishment, and that's why they go after Jimmy Dore. That's why they banned a bunch of progressives. Why YouTube kicked out Graham Elwood. These are progressives who challenge the establishment. So their best, vector of attack is you're the other, you're evil, right wing is bad. That's what we're gonna, that's what we've been seeing.
The tribalism, you've talked about this.
Right.
Everyone in their tribes, and it just creates this dichotomy and this dynamic that it's like you're fighting the other and it dehumanizes them. But I think what's interesting about what's going on with these loyalty tests is that the military has traditionally been one of the last institutions that, I'm not saying it was, completely right wing, but it was certainly center right. And it's the one institution that they really haven't had a full amount of control over. And if you really want to completely take over society, yes, you can have the media, yes, you could have big tech, yes, you could have academia, all these other major institutions. But at the end of the day, to really enforce a lot of their dystopian agenda, it needs to have someone with a gun, and the end of the gun being pointed at you, essentially.
They don't have police.
And they don't have police, and they don't have the military. Now they finally have their political power. They have their media power. This is one of the last steps to full consolidation. It's very scary.
And they're trying to get the military to wear high heels, as pointed out when Alex Jones came on.
And we didn't believe him.
Yeah.
We were like, get out of here, you crazy guy.
And as this is happening, we have to understand on the backdrop, we got information from the BBC today that came out in an article highlighting how the Chinese government is trying to promote education to make men more masculine in order to prevent the feminization of young boys. We also have to understand this is on the backdrop of many prominent Chinese government-linked organizations and institutions financing a lot of top colleges in the United States that make masculinity look bad. So this could be a larger play here. This is obviously speculation, but if you kind of connect the dots here, I think there's an argument to make.
Well, China knows what's happening in the U.S. They know the demoralization. They know the crumbling of society. It's happening, and they're trying to do everything they can to make sure their own society is actually well off. So they're acting in their own nation's best interests. Our elites are not. That's the difference between their elites and our elites. I mean, they're repugnant for sure, but at least they have their nation's self-interest to some degree.
Mike Pompeo said that we've been infiltrated by China at every single level, every state, every institution. Is it possible that this is a cultural attack against the U.S. exploiting our weaknesses? Free speech is a great thing, but it creates an attack vector. The right of crazy people to say crazy things and win once they have economic power.
What better way to take over a country than have it fight itself?
Right.
If you were China, if you were another competing country on the world stage and you wanted to take it over, there's a whole bunch of armed individuals. They have a whole bunch of guns. There's a whole bunch of sovereign individuals there that are anti-government, don't like authority, will never like us. We got to get rid of them. What better way than to do everything that's being done now? Sorry, I cut you off.
No, I was cutting you off, but thank you. No, it's the KGB guy, Yuri Bezmenov. He said, demoralize them. I mean, you're not going to beat them in open combat. You're not going to beat them through an invasion. You demoralize society. You make society hate itself. You make society divided, and then it crumbles beneath it. I mean, it's better than economics.
And it's the only way, because geographically, America is in a very unique position. You look at China, it's at a very geopolitically weak position.
India,
this is why they're fighting off, to make sure that they have the island of Taiwan. This is why they're building the islands in the South Chinese Sea. This is why they're fighting the Indians in that territory, because where they are on the world stage is very bad for any kind of fight that would happen.
Right.
The United States is in an amazing place, very safe, and the only way to really take it down is to, of course, make it fight itself.
It's not even just where the U.S. is; it's also the territory of the U.S. I mean, think about if they tried to come from the western coast. We got the Rockies, not something easy they could get equipment over. So there's no real ground invasion. That's never going to happen. Plus, we're armed to the teeth.
Right.
How many guns are in this country? What do we have? 4.3 million background checks in January.
A good thing. Beautiful.
That is a lot of guns. We don't know. All those background checks don't always result in a gun, but a lot of people in this country have guns. So there's that meme quote, I don't know if it's real, about a gun behind every blade of grass. So it's got to be psychological warfare.
Yeah, they'll spend like decades with this demoralization, according to Yuri Bezmenov. He said they'll do 2-3 decades of just demoralization.
He said that we were done. He said, I think, what was it, the 80s, 90s? He was like, you guys are already there. I mean,
because of the universities.
The universities.
G. Edward Griffin interviewed him, and he's still, writing books. He's the guy who wrote The Creature from Jekyll Island. He would be a great guest to have on. But according to Brookings, there's more guns than people in the United States.
Beautiful.
Right now.
Well, of course.
So
that's what they're scared of.
We're talking about more than like 400
million.
Listen
to this. We were joking about, not really joking, we were talking and lamenting about Seth Rogen being a really mean person, right? So it's kind of silly, and a lot of people probably think it's meaningless, but I think this is one of the most important aspects of how we will be crushed by China. Believe it or not, I'm going to say, in the upcoming conflict, the ongoing conflict with China, the U.S. will be defeated, and a good example of why is Seth Rogen being a bad person. Seth Rogen responded to a guy from Quillette named Jonathan Kay just saying, "You are stupid." It was a meaningless post. There was no reason to say it. It was just an awful thing to be. And what this shows is people in this country, from the smallest angry Twitterer to the wealthiest, most famous celebrity, they've become completely demoralized. There's literally no reason for this. I saw something that really broke my heart earlier. I don't know if you guys saw the story. Carrie Elwes insulted Ted Cruz saying everyone from the cast and crew, despises you or whatever, and you're a humongous ROUS or something like that. And then Ted Cruz responded with, does this mean you want your picture back? And it was a picture of Carrie Elwes as the Dread Pirate Roberts in Princess Bride, and it was signed to Ted Cruz by Carrie Elwes. That means, at some point, Carrie met with Ted Cruz and probably shook his hand and said, here's a picture of me, or signed it to him and signed it for him. That's a sign of respect, because they knew Ted Cruz loves The Princess Bride, a very famous movie from the 80s. And now we're at a point where the demoralization is so within us that Carrie Elwes, who once gave this gift to Ted Cruz, is smack-talking him on Twitter for no reason. Why is everyone so awful? You know what? It could just be that we are victims of our own success, and we have created these big social platforms that have manipulated us. And it's entirely possible that, like Yuri Bezmenov said, this is the weakness of the United States, and we have been demoralized, and this is regardless of whether China wants it to happen. I think when you talk about Mike Pompeo saying we've been infiltrated at every level, then it stands to reason that this is playing exactly into their hands.
It's not that everyone's awful. It's like if we're all chilling in a room and one person comes in and starts screaming, it ruins the room for everyone.
It's like a virus.
And that's similar to Twitter.
Yeah.
Get these loud idiots that are.
It's a vocal minority, but I think it's not just so outside influence.
But it's not the minority. It's every single person.
Not me.
Fair.
No, I know. It's what I would say is it's most people who are active on Twitter. Most people, like conservatives, do it all the time. Like Luke was making fun of AOC all day. Why?
The memes were great. It was a lot of memes. It was a lot of videos, and I thought they were hilarious. And I think during this situation, I think it's important to laugh. You need to laugh.
But the problem is it's always at the expense of other people. I called AOC a liar who's manipulating us, and she fabricated her story, and I proved it on the timeline. But Crowder called her a horse face.
Yeah, that's a little far.
Right. So the problem is criticism is okay when people are doing things that are bad. And AOC is one of the biggest contributors to demoralization in this country. But I don't like we have to get away from being vicious and nasty, because that's what's weakening us. Look, Luke pointed out this story from the BBC. China promotes education drive to make boys more manly. It is the opposite of what we are doing here in this country. Like you mentioned, we need to teach people like stoicism, pragmatism, to be strong and resilient and calm and controlled in their emotions.
We have to relearn the classics. We have to relearn everything that they knew in ancient times. I mean, I feel like modernity has shown us that it's given this arrogance that we're at the best point in our development as a society, as humans, when in reality we've regressed in many areas. Yes, our technology is better. Yes, some economic things are better. But in a lot of ways, at an individual level, I mean, in terms of people being more independent, people being more free thinking, we've regressed so far. Well,
even just beyond that, specifically talking about what's happening in men in China, they're dealing with a huge population crisis that is coming to a head. That's going to lead to a lot of problems inside of China. And when you look at it, statistically, testosterone and sperm levels are down dramatically, and they're going down throughout the last few years in a way that's absolutely shocking and should scare the crap out of everyone, particularly in the West, where, of course, we are seeing essentially just what people are calling a chemical warfare against men.
Well, if you want to control a society, you don't want a society full of angry men who are well-read, who know their history, who know what's going on. You want a society full of, soy boys, essentially, who don't know their history, who are just atomized.
They can't stand up for themselves.
They can't stand up for themselves. They don't know their past. They don't know their future. They're just kind of living in the moment in this consumerist society. Those are the easiest people to control.
Don't have a family.
No family, no roots, nothing. They're just driftless in mind and body. And
those are perfect individuals for big multinational corporations to profit off of, because they're always going to have a customer.
Exactly.
When someone would have a family, when someone would have values and important things to work towards and do,
transcendence.
They're not going to be looking for happiness inside of a Happy Meal or inside of the next product that they buy.
Right.
Their happiness, they're going to feel content, which is going to make them a worse off consumer. So on many levels, this works for the benefit of course, the billionaire class, geopolitically for other countries, and of course not to the benefit of you, me, or anyone else listening.
Right.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. We do the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. So come back to check us out when we go live. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, and we are also available on all podcast platforms for free if you want to listen to us there. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you all next time.